Hikers and some cyclists in Levy County were able to snack on some tasty treats in the forest this afternoon. TV20's Howie Ezel tells us what occasion warranted the feast.
Goethe State Park was filled with excitement as organizers from Friends of Goethe brought Taste of Goethe back for the third year. Friends of Goethe is a group made up of volunteers who encourage horse riding, hiking, or cycling use of the forest trails. Group members say the idea for Taste of Goethe came after talks of a possible turnpike extension into the state forest.
It started out as a project basically to just make more people aware of what a jewel the Goethe Forest is.
The event included over a dozen vendors who provided free samples of food and drink to all who attended.
We have so many cool restaurants in this area. People would be surprised, if they feel like we're out in the middle of nowhere.
Tables were set up along the various trails for participants to enjoy along their way.
It brings together horses and hikers and bike people.
Event organizers tell me they want people to know there's more than enough space for everyone horsing around on these trails. As you can see, people have brought their bikes, their two legs, their empty stomachs, and their horses.
All the trails out here are multi-use, but a lot of times there are some people that think there's always got to be a conflict between these groups, and they don't, because we're all here together today.
Guided trail hikes and fire safety presentations were provided by Florida Forest Service employees and volunteers. Organizers with Friends of Goethe say they've applied to be a tax-exempt organization in hopes of sponsoring more events like these. In Denellen, Hawa Ezel, TV 20 News.